What if I told you that at least a decade before the first Apollo astronauts landed on the moon, there were a group of astronauts known as the Alternates who landed on the moon in secret in the late 50s? And not only the moon, they landed on Mars as well. Is it possible? Well, according to some leaked Pentagon documents, along with video smuggled by astronauts who were there themselves, told a wildly different story than what we were all led to believe. These leaked documents stated that shortly after World War II, when the notorious Roswell UFO crashed in Roswell, New Mexico, a sacred treaty between the Pentagon and the Zeta Reticuli, the extraterrestrials that were on the craft, was formed. It went as follows. The Zetans, with their advanced technology and astrological know-how, were to help what was known as the Pentagon's Department of Majority, and they were to help them colonize the moon with secret bases while teaching them to properly establish and maintain said colonies on the moon. And in exchange, the Pentagon's Majority Department was to help the Zetans colonize Earth, namely the United States, by helping them establish deep underground alien bases where they could live and thrive without hindrance or military intervention on the humans' part. The Pentagon figured at the time cooperating with the Zetans would be better than getting invaded. So as the result, the Zetans showed the Pentagon scientists how to construct nuclear and mercury-powered sources, as well as space shuttles, rockets, and all of the advanced NASA technology. And while this was good, it was still inferior to the Zetans' anti-gravity magnetic power sources, keeping them in the position of power technologically, ensuring there would be no threat from us if we did happen to gain any type of military advantage. So the Zetans basically kept their technological advantage. They gave us more rudimentary technology in order to maintain their advantage militarily, because they seen how humans are, and they figured that we were much more susceptible to attack them instead of keep the peace, should they give us that advanced speed of light travel, propulsion, magnetic power. Obviously, the presidents at the time didn't want to tell the people that they made a deal with a colonizing race of aliens that had actually previously nuked Earth. They intelligently kept that little detail from the public. In the deal, the Pentagon's new friends were also aided by captured German scientists during World War II, guys like Werner von Braun, who were testing resources and technology they got from the Zetans when they had the Germans doing their genetic experiments for them. Things like cross-splicing DNA of multiple different species of animal, possibly even humans and primates, or humans and dog or wolf. In the end, it was much easier to have the Germans do it rather than abducting humans and doing the experiments themselves. The primitive technologies of the Pentagon, like rockets and shuttles, were often mistaken for real UFOs. These shuttles made it to the moon and Mars. Nobody knew it, not even the president at the time. But in May of 1962, the Pentagon sent a shuttle of astronauts successfully to Mars. It was videotaped, but never released or shared with the public. And after reading this over again, you guys, and doing some thinking about it all, this is the first time I've ever heard anything like this. I actually found this on another YouTube channel that was abandoned like 14 or 15 years ago. While I was going and watching these videos, while I was going through them, I was just mind blown by all this information. First time I've ever heard it. So I was like, wow, dude, I gotta share this. But now I'm putting two and two together, y'all. That was Project Serpo. It had to have been. I know before we had talked about it in the Zeta Reticuli constellations, light years away, this, that, and the other, but it says right here, after Roswell, they made a pact with the Zetans. They started sharing technology. The Zetans shared shuttles and spacecraft and the basic technology with us, but not the light speed propulsion, magnetics, etc. But they said that they were previously from Mars. And actually in 1962, we went and did the Project Serpo exchange. 3 of theirs came here and 3 of ours went there. And we actually went to Mars, guys. We had to have. And it was the Project Serpo exchange program. Now, of course, this is right around when Kennedy, or shortly thereafter, Kennedy was assassinated. And I'm not sure if it's because he wanted to share all of this stuff, right? He wanted to share all of this information with the public that Mars had these, I'll share them here in a second with you. But yeah, I put two and two together. It had to have been Project Serpo, the Zeta Reticuli beings, and you had EBE-1. The more primitive technologies like rockets and shuttles of the Pentagon inside the US were often mistaken for real UFOs. And they would be, think about it. That technology was so much more advanced than anybody knew about. So yeah, they'd absolutely mistake them for UFOs. These shuttles made it to the moon and Mars. Nobody knew it, not even the president. But in May of 1962, the Pentagon sent a shuttle of astronauts successfully to Mars. It was videotaped, but never released, of course, to the public. Namely because it allegedly showed a much different landscape than what the public was told and what they believed at the time as a result. It showed a remarkable landscape, far different than what NASA had us believing. Mars had beautiful lakes, canals, made thousands of years ago by an ancient alien civilization. The land contained lush, green vegetation, thick, heavy swamps, and it was teeming with animal life humanity couldn't even fathom, you guys. Why did they not share this with the public? Well, at the time, their number one agenda was to not cause mass panic by admitting that aliens exist at all whatsoever. So instead, they relay that it's a dry, desolate land devoid of any life at all, that nothing could possibly live there or have ever lived there for that matter. Funny enough, they also have never shown the public most of the 2,000 photos that they promised with Viking 1. Years later, the first public moon landing took place. And when the first Apollo astronauts landed on the moon in 1969, they couldn't believe their eyes. As they landed on the moon, they quickly noticed a population of thousands of people had been established and living there for at least a decade, some even longer than that. It consisted of Americans, Soviets, the British, the French, even Australians had established a small colony on the moon. In due time, a regular moon population of humans started to take place. The aliens used them to help establish more bases and better advance the technology to help themselves thrive. Like humans on Earth, they also were told different truths or tales, leading them to believe something different than the reality of how they got there and why they aren't on this Earth. They have no idea we even exist on the scale that we do down here. Ever seen the show, The 100? Yeah. Ironically enough, there's footage of an American spacecraft landing on Mars before Apollo even landed on the moon, y'all. What's even crazier, thanks to one of the scientists from NASA smuggling top secret information and releasing it to the public through British TV, we would have never known, but unfortunately, they censored it and it never made it to America. British authorities tried to call it a hoax to cover up the leak, but many believe that it was no hoax. The only astronaut who ever died outside of duty said it was the truth on the video, and he was silenced. It also said that a book exposing the Alternative 3 appeared in 1976 with very few copies released to the public before the government shut it down, and it was quickly forced out of print. You couldn't even order it, and the publishers would not issue a new release date in spite of a huge demand from the public at the time. Very strange to turn down that massive of profits. Now, a few encounters. France, August 3rd, 1962 at 8 a.m. Elena Nash reported, "Why has no one spoken of the mysterious message heard on the moon?" 11:15 a.m. Extraordinary fading occurred in contact with Houston. Wooden, who was in charge of telecommunications at the time, had his attention drawn by a breathing sound and a long whistle. A sentence was constantly repeated on the transmission from a small to a shrill tone and from lightly stressed sounds to a racket of exclamations, and luckily the transmission was recorded by a NASA recorder. Turns out there were 8 separate words of which nobody understood. Funny though, shortly after, the Berlin Wall came down. And suddenly and unexpectedly, the end of the Cold War between Russia and the United States. They quickly found peace. President Reagan then gave a speech, or a clue, during his 42nd session of the General Assembly of the United Nations on September 21st, 1987, saying, "In our obsessions with antagonisms at the moment, we often forget much unites the members of humanity, and perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize the common bond amongst us. I occasionally think that how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask, is not an alien force already among us? Then in his speech on December 4th, 1985, he stated that what if there was a threat to this world from other species from another planet? We forget all of the little differences that we had between our countries and stand together. Soviet President Gorbachev had publicly stated in a town hall meeting in Geneva, where the president said that if Earth faced an invasion by extraterrestrials, can we count on you to have our back? Gorbachev, to which said yes. So the US and the Soviet Union would join forces to repel an alien invasion should it take place. In 1959, a spacecraft from Mars reportedly landed in the wilderness outside of Moscow in the Soviet Union, where a secret meeting with Soviet Premier Nagato's cruise ship was arranged. The conference regarded improving relations with Earth, exchanging knowledge, and securing world interplanetary peace. The Soviet government rejected the terms. The report originated from Sergeant Willard O'Neill, formerly of the U.S. Army Intelligence, who investigated UFOs in Hawaii while in the military during the 50s. April 24th, 1964, an oval-shaped metallic flying object landed in a farm field in New York State, and two beings emerged from the estimated 20-foot-long craft. Farmer Gary Wilcox then drove his tractor towards the object. Clearly visible on a bright sunny day, the farmer kicked the metallic object to make sure it was real. The two occupants were about 4 feet high, and they carried a square tray full of different vegetables they had collected from his crops. Wilcox reported that when he confronted the beings stealing his crops, they said, "Don't be alarmed. We have spoken to people before." Gary described the voices as being very strange. They wore white, metallic-looking overalls without any stitching or pockets. He could not see their hands or their feet. He also could not see their features beneath the full spacesuits, which is speculated they were protecting these aliens from the Earth's atmosphere, as it must have been deadly to their race, said Wilcox, as he became inquisitive. One of them stated, "We are from what you know as planet Mars. We can only come to Earth every 2 years, and this year we leave a warning. The Earth people should stay out of space." They said that they were studying the organic materials on Earth because of the rocky structure of Mars, and they did not fly near our cities because they avoided the air pollution we have created. The being told Wilcox everything in monotone according to him. He even asked if he could go with them, but they rejected. Wilcox claimed he gave the beings a bag of fertilizer and exchanged information about it and other subjects before they entered the craft and took off. Wilcox was investigated by a psychiatrist and the sheriff's department. Both parties found him to be a truthful person with no emotional or mental problems, and they even confessed they believed his UFO experience was in fact real. In February 1972, United Nations diplomat Rita Rickey, who investigated UFOs, told the department agents that she had been contacted by a landed spacecraft from the planet Mars. The reported contact took place in the Mojave Desert in California in 1971. It made the front page of a major Arizona newspaper, the Daily Arizona Republic. The story also made the front page of the San Clemente, with an article written by Freddie Whitehall, who covered President Nixon and his staff at the Western White House. Paris stated that the alien offered to admit an ambassador to their interplanetary confederation in the solar system, in exchange for an ambassador to the General Assembly of the United Nations, in an attempt to re-establish diplomatic relations with Earth and other planets that have been suspended in ancient times due to the hostility on Earth. However, the terms with this peace arrangement were not acceptable to the Security Council, and the exchange was rejected in yet another secret meeting. Then, at the time, President Adam Malik of the United Nations was in favor of the treaty and would exchange contact information with the U.S. on this matter. The Council wanted to block his exchange, so they came to the U.S. to help to try and establish a civilian council to handle affairs between the people on Earth and the Interplanetary Confederation in the solar system. The corporations and government military showed interest, but they wanted control. The UN did not accept the alien insistence on destroying all nuclear weapons, ending all wars, and eliminating all polluting fossil fuels, which are all of the biggest bank accounts in the world. The most famous astronomers of the earliest 20th century include the great Werner von Braun. Stated there were signs of intelligent life on Mars. They reported huge areas of green vegetation that expanded and contracted with the melting of the ice caps, and that there were 4 seasons on Mars at one time. And I know y'all don't believe in the moon landing, a lot of it. So I could say they probably did fake the moon landing, but they eventually landed on the moon. If you go read the Book of Enoch, he talks about how they are luminaries. He talks about how they are celestial bodies in the sky and that they are local. And every time anybody argues with a flat earther, they say, "Where's the sun go when it sets? Where does the sun go when it sets?" My only answer to that is go read the Book of Enoch and read about the luminaries, and it'll tell you what happens. But yeah, no, crazy stuff. I can't believe it took me this long to figure out the Zeta Reticuli beings. Yes, we're from Mars. And according to what map? I'll show you right here. Take a look behind me. Look at all that lush green vegetation in Mars. Land of Mars, lush green vegetation. It's not a desolate wasteland, but there are beings from all over the realm living there, even humans allegedly, who went against their own kind, which is sad, but the case. I got a lot more stuff from this channel, like I said, to come. A lot of stuff. There's some stuff on mermaids and other things like that. Very cool. Yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed this. It was crazy. Stay in the love, stay in the light, be kind to others. Out.